Welcome back. Today we're taking a close look at a place where history runs deep and the future is actively being shaped. Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin.
Yeah, we've been looking through two really informative documents that our listeners shared. First, there's this comprehensive plan for the city, mapping out their vision from 2024 all the way to 2044.
20 years, wow.
Right. And second, we have some excerpts from a historical thesis. This one focuses more broadly on the Chippewa bands in the region, especially around Lac du Flambeau. But crucially for us, it covers the Chippewa River Basin.
Okay, so our goal here is to pull out the key insights from both of these. We want to get a real sense of what life is like in Chippewa Falls now, see how its past still, echoes today, and understand what the community is thinking about for the future.
Sort of building a detailed picture, drawing directly from their own planning in the historical record.
Yeah.
So to really get Chippewa Falls, it helps to start with the land itself and its earliest documented history. That thesis gives us the foundation. It really underlines how significant the Chippewa River Basin was as traditional territory.
And reading about life back in the 18th and 19th centuries, it's quite something. After the Chippewa people moved south of Lake Superior, they had to adapt, shifting to an interior economy based on different resources.
Yeah, the fur trade became absolutely central. But it also created this, well, difficult dependence. There was a credit system that basically forced constant hunting and trapping just to make ends meet, just to survive.
And it wasn't peaceful either. The thesis mentions constant warfare, especially with the Dakota, in what it calls a tension zone.
Right, and travel itself. It wasn't just about getting around, it was survival. They relied on these really intricate canoe routes, portages.
I found that detail fascinating, measuring portages in pauses, the number of rests needed, not miles.
Exactly, speaks volumes about the effort involved. And navigating rapids. That required specific, highly skilled guides. It wasn't something anyone could just do.
The history mentions specific spots, too, places important for these routes, like Lac du Flambeau, Trout Lake, Lac Vieux Desert, Turtle Portage.
And the Wisconsin River Band. This history played out right on the land we're talking about, in the Chippewa River Basin. These are incredibly deep routes.
So, bringing it closer to today, the comprehensive plan shows how the city works to preserve its more recent history.
Yes, through its institutions.
Like the Chippewa Falls Museum of Industry and Technology downtown, CFMIT. Since '98, it's been focused on local innovation history.
And then there's the Chippewa Area History Center near Irvine Park. That's home to the County Historical and Genealogical Societies. They even have events like The Past
Wow,
Here.
cool.
And you can't forget the Hyde Center for the Arts. It's in the old McDonald Memorial High School building, beautifully renovated. It's become a real hub for the arts, connecting the city's past buildings to its current cultural life.
So these places are actively keeping the story alive.
Definitely.
Okay, let's shift gears then. What does the comprehensive plan tell us about daily life, about the community today?
Well, strong sense of community really comes through. Community pride is mentioned quite a bit.
And people connect that feeling to the amenities, right? The plan highlights things like parks, trails, good transportation, reliable broadband.
Exactly. Things that make for quality neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And the report notes this became even more apparent, during and after the COVID-19 pandemic.
That makes sense. What about how the community itself is changing? Demographics.
A couple of key trends noted. Public school enrollment has been decreasing, and the population is aging.
Getting older, so that makes things like aging in community really important.
Hugely important. The Senior Center gets a specific shout-out as a vital gathering place. There's a pretty strong suggestion it needs a major remodel, or perhaps even a whole new facility to keep up.
Okay, let's talk about getting around. Transportation. The plan seems to cover this in detail.
It does. Streets and highways are obviously fundamental. There's a clear need for ongoing road and sidewalk repair and maintenance.
And they want to coordinate that with utility projects, which sounds smart. Less disruption.
Right. But a big point is pedestrian and bike connectivity. The plan flat out says it's currently poor.
Poor, okay.
Yeah. So there's a definite push to improve that. Promote walkable neighborhoods, encourage walking or biking to work for health reasons.
Which involves maintaining and updating the bike paths they do have.
Absolutely. And the plan notes there's funding available for that. Plus, improving wayfinding, basically. Better signs so people know how to get places easily. That's also on the list.
And this all feeds into a bigger goal, right? Connecting neighborhoods, parks, schools, the senior center, workplaces. Especially linking everything better to downtown for people walking or biking.
Precisely. They're even looking at a specific safe routes to downtown plan and thinking about practical things, like whether they need more bike racks downtown.
Beyond walking and biking, what else?
Well, the plan mentions transit options. There's transit that picks you up at home, public transport within the city, and options for rides outside the city limits, too.
And specialized transport for seniors.
Yes, highlighted as crucial for getting to appointments and just staying connected socially. And looking forward, they're seeing growing demand for EV charging stations. That's definitely on their radar.
Okay, so moving from how people get around to the places within the city, what about key facilities and public spaces?
One area jumps out with real urgency: healthcare.
Ah, yes, the hospital closures.
Right. The recent HSHS closures in the area, including Eau Claire, have had a major impact. It potentially leaves residents relying heavily on a smaller 25-bed hospital over in Bloomer for a lot of Chippewa County.
And that creates significant gaps right in Chippewa Falls itself.
Yes, the sources list specific services impacted: emergency services, wound care, urgent care, services for alcohol and other drug abuse, AODA, and behavioral health, OBGYN, and other outpatient stuff.
The plan uses the word dire for the emergency services shortfall, doesn't it?
It does. Concerns about longer EMS runs, getting people to hospitals farther away that have the capacity? It's serious. And the closure of the Libertas Treatment Center left a big hole for residential and detox programs for AODA.
Which the young adults group flagged as a major concern.
Right. Although there are outpatient services like Aurora Community Counseling and the Chippewa Area Recovery Resource. But the bottom line is, keeping a hospital with urgent care in the city is seen as incredibly important.
What about specialized housing for seniors and others?
The plan details what's available: nursing homes, CBRFs, those are community-based residential facilities, adult family homes, and residential care apartment complexes, or RCACs.
And how does the capacity stack up?
Well, combined, they offer about 685 licensed spaces. But when you look at the number of residents aged 65 and older, that only covers less than 24% of that group.
So with the population aging?
Demand is almost certainly going to increase, probably significantly.
Another facility needing attention seems to be the library.
Yeah, it's recognized that it needs a major renovation, maybe even a completely new building, to keep up with how libraries are used today. And they really emphasize keeping it downtown, or at least connected to downtown.
Okay, let's go outside. Parks and recreation.
Chippewa Falls seems pretty strong here. Their outdoor recreation plan lists 28 parks and outdoor facilities. Having that plan is smart planning too, because it makes them eligible for state WDNR grants.
Like Knowles Nelson.
Exactly. And residents had plenty of ideas for more recreation.
Like what?
Specific things came up. More pickleball courts, that's huge everywhere now, affordable swimming options, maybe even an indoor pool, better upkeep for smaller neighborhood parks, kayak rentals, climbing walls.
So a range of things. Any mention of a community pool?
Yeah, some survey responses specifically suggested an updated community pool or rec center. Marshall Park was floated as a possible location.
Okay, let's zoom in on downtown. Chapter 9 in the plan, right?
Right. Described as the hub for government finance professional offices, roughly bordered by Duncan Creek and the Chippewa River. It includes a business improvement district, a BID, with about 164 taxable properties.
And there are efforts to preserve its character.
Definitely. Promoting preservation of historic buildings, encouraging businesses to use facade loan programs, pushing for converting upper floors to housing, using the Main Street program. It's all about collaboration to attract investment.
Using incentives and marketing too, I gather.
Yes. And connecting it better, multimodally walking, biking to other parts of the city is key. The plan even talks about revitalizing the neighborhoods around downtown, maybe using Duncan Creek as an asset to improve those links and add housing.
And that can expect to housing incentives, like for fixing up those second-floor apartments in downtown buildings.
Right. Plus, keeping up appearances with things like flower baskets, flags, public art. Those downtown amenities matter for the overall feel.
Okay, let's broaden out again. The overall built environment, future growth, housing, and land use seem like major topics in the plan.
They really are. And housing affordability is a huge challenge.
How so?
Well, the data shows a lot of rental housing. About 42% falls in that $550 to $749 price range. But for households earning under $25,000 a year, there's a mismatch. About 32% of low-income households fall into that bracket. But only 15% of the rental units are actually affordable for them, meaning under $550.
So many lower-income families are paying way more than that 30% threshold for housing.
Exactly. The estimate for 2021 was nearly half, 48% of all rental households, and 22% of homeowners with a mortgage were paying over 30% of their income on housing. Simply put, incomes haven't kept up with housing costs.
And finding affordable homes to buy is tough, too, especially starter homes.
Very tough. Realtors noted how hard it is to find anything decent in the $150,000 to $200,000 range, especially without needing major work. And rising interest rates just make it harder. A quick Zillow search they mentioned from June 2023 showed very few options in that range compared to homes over $300,000.
So what are they proposing to do about it? Any strategies?
Yeah, the plan lists several potential ideas. Things like financial help for major repairs, roofs, HVAC, especially if they meet energy standards, exploring employer-assisted housing with the big local companies,
Interesting.
and using development agreements where the city might offer subsidies to developers if they agree to keep some units affordable for low to moderate income folks for a set number of years.
Okay, what about land? If they need more housing and industry, do they have the space?
That's another major theme, the need for more developable land, especially for residential subdivisions and industrial or business parks.
How much do they think they need?
The projection is about 12,250 acres over the next 25 years. Broken down, that's like 500 for residential, 150 commercial, 600 industrial.
And how much do they actually have available within the city limits?
Well, the current supply of undeveloped and agricultural land is around 732 acres. But very few parcels are large. Only 15 are over 10 acres.
And you lose some of that to sensitive areas?
Right, but 143 acres are environmentally sensitive, leaving maybe 589 acres that could potentially be developed. But, and this is key, they don't know the intentions of the private landowners.
So, not much room for big subdivisions or industrial parks.
Pretty limited right now.
Yeah.
The conclusion is that the city's existing land base probably isn't enough for the growth they anticipate. Even though sewer and water capacity seems okay for projected growth, unless some huge water user comes in.
Any other land considerations?
There's that large chunk of state-owned land on the southeast side, about 350 acres, Northern Wisconsin Center, National Guard. It's seen as a long-term redevelopment possibility, but apparently outreach to the state about future plans hasn't gone anywhere yet.
And they're looking at zoning, too.
Yeah, exploring form-based zoning. That focuses more on the physical shape and character of buildings and less on just separating uses, potentially allowing more compatible mixed uses.
Let's shift focus slightly now to the environment and sustainability. How does the city approach that?
Well, protecting natural resources is definitely part of the plan. They have a wellhead protection overlay district, for instance.
To protect the drinking water source.
Exactly. It protects the groundwater recharge areas for the city's wells. It's managed locally through permits. And managing that area is an ongoing task.
And they recognize that environmental issues cross borders.
Yes, intergovernmental coordination is seen as essential. Things like stormwater runoff, potential groundwater pollution, air quality, they don't stop at the city line. Cooperation is needed.
Makes sense. What about water quality planning?
Sewer service area planning and protecting ESAs. Environmentally sensitive areas are key parts of that, largely driven by the Clean Water Act. They participate in updates to the regional Chippewa Falls Eau Claire Urban Sewer Service Area Plan.
Are there specific environmental strategies mentioned?
Yes, developing an environmental corridor strategy, particularly along the Chippewa River and Duncan Creek. The idea is to enhance those shorelands as green space, wildlife habitat, buffers for stormwater and erosion, and maybe even put in multi-use paths.
And continuing the wellhead protection.
Right. And it seems there's community support for this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
A community survey showed 65% felt it was important or very important for the city to be more environmentally sustainable. Support was even higher among younger people.
So things like better bike pedestrian paths and protecting those sensitive areas tie into that sustainability goal.
Definitely. And they're considering some specific actions, too. Maybe a dark sky ordinance for light pollution, tougher stormwater standards encouraging low-impact development, reviewing rules about solar access, small wind turbines, EV chargers.
Okay, finally, let's talk about working together. The plan emphasizes collaboration, right? Both government to government and within the community.
Hugely. Intergovernmental cooperation is framed as necessary because, well, environmental, economic, social health, it's all connected and issues cross boundaries. Cooperation helps avoid conflicts, find ways to share costs, and pool resources. It's actually required by state law in these plans.
Any specific examples?
Coordinating with Eau Claire and Lake Hallie, where their planning review authority overlaps outside city limits. and encouraging cooperative boundary agreements with the surrounding towns for future growth areas.
And what about within the community? Partnerships? Volunteers?
The plan is very clear that the city can't achieve its goals alone. It relies on active community organizations, businesses, volunteers, all those partners.
Does it name any?
Yeah, groups like Rain to Rivers of Western Wisconsin, UW-Madison Extension staff, county departments like Land Conservation and Environmental Services are mentioned as examples.
And volunteerism itself?
Came up as really important focus groups. But there was also an observation that some organizations struggle to get new volunteers, and funding operations is always a challenge.
So what's the plan suggest doing about that?
Celebrating successes, marketing volunteer opportunities better, raising awareness about local giving options like Give Chippewa County or the Community Foundation, engaging businesses more.
And maybe a coordinator role.
Yeah, possibly creating a volunteer or giving coordinator position to act as a sort of clearinghouse, matching needs with resources and people.
So looking back across everything we've discussed from these sources, you really get this incredibly detailed, layered picture of Chippewa Falls.
You really do. From those deep historical roots connected to the land and the Chippewa people.
To the very real present-day challenges like healthcare access and housing affordability.
Through their clear appreciation for parks and community facilities.
And then looking ahead with these detailed plans for growth, for sustainability, and for working together, you see a community really thinking about its identity and its future path.
Yeah, these documents give you that insider view, not just facts and figures, but what the community values, what it aspires to.
So here's a final thought, pulling it all together for you, our listener, to consider. Given everything we've heard, the community's strong value placed on its sense of place, its natural resources, its history.
Alongside these really pressing needs for more housing, more land for jobs, and fixing urgent service gaps like healthcare.
How does a city like Chippewa Falls actually manage that? How do they navigate the path of necessary growth and change while deliberately protecting the very character, the very things that make it Chippewa Falls?
That's the balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the core question shaping their plans for the next 20 years and probably beyond.
Absolutely. Well, that's our exploration of Chippewa Falls based on these sources. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.